Leonardo da Vinci by Sherwin Nuland. Copyright 2000 by Sherwin Nuland. This full-length reading was published by arrangement with Viking Penguin, a division of Penguin Putnam Incorporated, and was produced in 2000 by Books on Tape Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. This book has 166 pages and is read by Scott Brick. Should you have any questions about this recording, please call the customer service number shown on the package for information or assistance. The following material appears on the dust jacket of the book. The enigma of the Mona Lisa's smile is not less than the enigma of her creator's life force. In Leonardo da Vinci, Sherwin Nuland, whose own work time has called awe-inspiring, completes his 20-year quest to understand an unlettered man who was painter, architect, engineer, philosopher, mathematician, and scientist. What was it that propelled Leonardo's insatiable curiosity? How could he be, in the same moment, as naive as a child and as profound as a sage? Nuland finds clues in his subject's art, relationships, and scientific studies, as well as in the manuscripts spotlighted by their sale at auction to Bill Gates. Nuland detects the siren voice that lured the great artist so often into the arms of science. His fascination with anatomy, first as the basis for his paintings, and then as the crucial component in his aim to systematize all knowledge of nature. Scholarly and passionate, Nuland's Leonardo da Vinci takes us deep into the first truly modern empirical mind, one that was centuries ahead of its time. Sherwin Nuland is the author of the best-selling How We Die, which won the 1994 National Book Award for Nonfiction. The Mysteries Within, A Surgeon Reflects on Medical Myth, Doctors, The Biography of Medicine, and The Wisdom of the Body, published in paperback as How We Live. He is clinical professor of surgery at Yale University, where he also teaches medical history and bioethics. He lives in Hamden, Connecticut. Dedication. To my two Italians, Salvatore Mazza and my brother, Vittorio Ferrero. Chapter 1. Searching for the Man. In the 8th year of my near-idolatrous fascination with the life of Leonardo da Vinci, I made a pilgrimage to the house where he was born. Or so I thought. It was 1985, and my wife Sarah and I were in Florence. On our second morning in the city, without a moment's forethought, we precipitously decided to visit Vinci, where neither of us had been before. What better place to go for directions than the Museo di Storia della Scienza? Finding it closed, I knocked on the massive wooden door, and to my surprise it was opened just a crack by a woman who heard me out and then went inside to ask the direttore for advice. She quickly returned with her boss, and Sarah and I soon found ourselves on the train to Empoli, a distance of about 12 kilometers. From there we took a short bus ride to Vinci. Vinci proved to be a town indistinguishable from most others in the area, except that it had a small museum where models of Leonardo-inspired machines were available for inspection. And there was something else. Large signs pointed the way to La Casa Natale di Leonardo, the great man's birthplace, said to lie at a distance of 3 kilometers. What the signs did not say was that the 3 kilometers were entirely up a steep hill, which we now proceeded to climb. Upon having hauled ourselves up to the top, we were rewarded by the presence of a large stone building, clearly the ruin of a Renaissance house. We had arrived at the very place. Strangely, neither Sarah nor I felt the sense of elation we had expected. The inside of the structure consisted of a single large stone-floored room with a wide hearth at one end. An elderly woman was selling souvenir postcards. There was nothing else, either physically or spiritually. Whatever we had expected to find was not there. A few other tourists wandered aimlessly through the space, looking as disappointed as we did. I tried to counterfeit enthusiasm for Sarah's sake, and she did the same for mine, but nothing availed. After all the effort to get to the natal place of my hero, the result was anticlimactic. Still, it was his birthplace, even if its austere old bricks seemed to have no message for us. At first we were reluctant to leave, continuing, I suppose, to cling to the hope that one or the other of us would be seized with inspiration by just the thought of our being there. When about 20 minutes of this had no demonstrable issue, we made up our minds to leave. Hitching a ride in a German tourist's Mercedes, we made short work of getting back to the center of town. Absent the anticipation of the ascent, the ride down the long hill was depressing. It had been a drought year in 1984. Every olive tree was still barren and shriveled, the grass was brown, and the soil was parched and almost sandy. In such an atmosphere, it was difficult to conjure up the classic image of the golden-haired child Leonardo, becoming ever more enthralled by the beauties of all the magnificence of living nature around him, as he gamboled in the lush beauty of the surrounding fields. And there was worse to come. Some long time later, I came to realize, through my reading and conversations with Italian friends, that no one has any idea where Leonardo was born. In fact, his natal house may not even have been in Vinci. According to some, he was born in the nearby town of Anciano, and brought to Vinci only after a few years, or perhaps it was a few months. Sarah and I may have been in the house where he was born, but then again, we may not. To add to the confusion, we later found out that our walk up the hill had taken us out of Vinci and into Anciano itself, whose citizens consider the Casa Natale di Leonardo to be a hoax perpetrated on gullible tourists. Leonardo was not to be found in that place. In fact, he is not to be found in any place. He is not a creature of places or monuments or even of permanence. He flashed across his time and was gone, leaving a vast body of work, almost none of which, except the paintings, could be fully appreciated until centuries after his death, and far away from the house in which he was almost certainly not born. Quoting the famous statement of Freud, he was like a man who awoke too early in the darkness, while the others were all still asleep. The eminent Vincian scholar Ladislau Reti has followed the image by pointing out how many of Leonardo's manuscripts disappeared into that darkness. It is only through the relatively recent rediscovery of some of them that the enigma of his genius is being illuminated. And yet he remains, and always will, precisely what Reti calls him, the unknown Leonardo. Leonardo da Vinci was a creature of ideas. In some ways he is elusive, in others he is so close to us that his voice is easily heard. Far more is known about his thought and the great range of his mind than about the actual events and circumstances of his life. But even his thought must remain always somewhat obscure to us. If he is, as Sir Kenneth Clark so appropriately calls him, the most relentlessly curious man in history, he is also the historical figure about whom we are most relentlessly curious. As Leonardo must ultimately remain unknown to us, so did the restraints remain to him that perforce stood in the way of his achieving his objectives as a student of nature. Without the instruments, the mathematics, the experimental methods of a later time, he could not have known in which direction to set out so that he might achieve his final aim, which was a systematization of all knowledge of nature. So he struck out in every direction at once, and the greatest of wonders is how much he was able to achieve in the absence of technologies and information that would be available only to modern thinkers. He has been criticized, now and in his own time, for finishing so little of what he started. And yet, how could it have been otherwise, at least in the areas of his scientific work? The probings of his mind had gone well beyond the supporting knowledge and technology of his era. Had much more been available, it would certainly have released his genius to fly as far in reality as it did in his conjectures and fantasies. Kenneth Keel, the foremost authority on Leonardo's anatomical studies, once sent me a paragraph extracted from a letter to a mutual friend, in which he described his own feelings about these matters, aroused while he was working on some of Leonardo's manuscripts. At every page, I am fascinated by his intelligent questions and answers. But I often find myself realizing that however intelligent, however full of instinctive weight the questions are, if the supporting base of knowledge is not there, the answers are bound to contain errors. This makes my tale inevitably one tinged with sadness, and the more Leonardo struggles within his chains of ignorance, the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?